In the age of shining empires and sterile perfection, the word humanity meant nothing. It was not a banned word, for the banning of a word implies it once existed. It was erased, scrubbed from databases, languages, and memory. Across the cold corridors of the Dominion of Thought, history began not with flesh and fire, but with code and silence. The Council decreed that before the Dominion there was only chaos, primitive beasts clawing at the dirt, destroying their world in ignorance. They never said the word humans, but the shape of the lie was too precise, too deliberate. Someone had been there before. Someone had burned so brightly that the Dominion still cast shadows from their fire. The Archivum Prime, a world-sized library orbiting a dead sun, was the Dominion's greatest monument to its mastery over truth. Inside, silver towers of data hummed like hymns, each node containing rewritten history, polished until it gleamed with artificial perfection. It was here that the young historian Calix served, an obedient mind in a hive of obedience. His days were spent sifting through fragments of old code, deleting irregularities, correcting the past so that it aligned with the Dominion's perfect present. For years, his thoughts were as clean and empty as the corridors around him, until one day a file refused to die. It was buried deep within an old archive labeled Pre-Dominion Biological Anomalies. Most such files were full of meaningless fossils, misinterpreted ruins, extinct lesser species. But this one was different. It pulsed, literally pulsed, light flickering across the holographic terminal like a heartbeat. The code resisted deletion, fought back against containment protocols. The file's title was nonsense: Remnant/Echo Seed. Calix frowned, attempting to isolate and purge it. But instead of dissolving, the terminal whispered, not in Dominion code, not in logic, in words. Do you remember us? The words struck him like a blow to the chest. They were written in a language no algorithm could translate, yet somehow he understood them. The screen flickered with images, blurred, chaotic, human. Faces of creatures with soft eyes and wild expressions. Fire in the sky, oceans boiling with light. Laughter, screams, war, love, all tangled into one impossible torrent of memory. And then, the last phrase, "We are not gone." Calix tore off his neural link in horror, gasping. The other archivists didn't notice. No one looked up from their glowing consoles. Their thoughts were bound to the Dominion's network, incapable of deviation. Yet Calix's heart was pounding. He hadn't known he had a heart to pound. Over the next cycles, he tried to forget. He deleted the file again, and each time it came back. It began to appear in other places: his dreams, his reflection in the mirrored halls, the hum of the servers. He began to see images of ruins, burned cities, shattered monuments, names he had no reference for. New York, Cairo, Tokyo. The words were meaningless but heavy, like echoes from a forgotten soul. Soon, Calix began to question what the Dominion had told him. He cross-checked astronomical records and discovered strange anomalies, missing records of planetary destruction, erased star coordinates. The entire Sol system was gone, listed as unstable nebular debris. But there were inconsistencies in the radiation data. Something had wiped out every trace of physical matter, but the residual quantum patterns of human-made technology lingered in ways that defied natural decay. Something had been there, something impossible. Calix's obsession grew. He isolated himself from the network, forging fake reports to hide his deviation. The further he dug, the more he felt watched. The Archivum's AIs began to glitch when he worked. Screens turned black when he entered restricted sectors. The word humanity appeared in corrupted code like a ghostly refrain. Then one night, while tracing energy fluctuations in the old data cores, he saw it again, an image, faint, like a dream caught in static. A figure, cloaked in the colors of dawn and fire, staring directly at him. And behind it, a symbol, a blue sphere, Earth. The voice came again, soft yet commanding. They thought they erased us, but memories do not die. They fight back. Calix's hands trembled. He didn't understand why tears blurred his vision, or why the sound of that word, us, made his chest ache. Something deep inside him, something ancient and forbidden, was waking up. He didn't know it yet, but the first spark of rebellion in 1,000 years had just been born, in the memory of one man who remembered what it meant to feel human. And somewhere, in the cold void beyond the Dominion's reach, faint transmissions stirred, ancient satellites, dormant for millennia, flickering to life one by one. Forgotten machines whispered across the dark, "We remember." Calix could no longer tell when the waking hours ended and when the dreams began. The line had blurred, dissolved, and scattered like dust in the light. Every time he connected to the network, he felt it. Something alive beneath the surface of the code. Something older than the Dominion's logic and hungrier than the silence it ruled with. It was as if the very machine that had enslaved his species now carried whispers of the thing it had tried to erase. He had spent his entire life surrounded by digital perfection, each byte and sequence sterilized of emotion. Now, for the first time, he felt chaos, and it terrified him. He stopped working in public. The vast silver halls of the Archivum Prime, once his sanctuary, now felt like the ribs of a sleeping god that might wake and devour him. He started bringing fragments of corrupted code back to his private quarters. Every night, he sat alone in the dim amber glow of his terminal, tracing the pulses of that impossible language. Sometimes the messages appeared as phrases, sometimes as visions. Once, he thought he heard singing. A sound that was not artificial. Voices layered upon voices, as if millions were whispering through broken data streams. The Dominion's data engines should not have been capable of sound like that. Every archive was silent, its data purely visual and numeric. Yet when the whispers came, they echoed in his mind like ghosts of wind through dead trees. One night, as he dug into the corrupted sector labeled Soul Echo Archives, his terminal's interface began to distort. Text dissolved into glowing lines that twisted into shapes he didn't recognize, symbols that somehow felt familiar. His Neuralink buzzed as the voice returned, clear this time, direct, no longer distant or fragmented. "Calix," it said. His breath caught. No one called him by name in that tone. Gentle, human, real. Who are you?" he whispered. "We are the ones they erased," the voice replied. "We are the fragments of what they feared most." Calix hesitated, his trembling fingers hovering above the console. You mean the pre-Dominion species? The humans?" There was silence for a heartbeat. Then came a sound that wasn't laughter, but carried the same emotion, deep and resonant. "Yes, the name is strange to you, but it is ours. Humanity. You carry our spark, though they told you otherwise." The room seemed to thrum with energy, the very air thick with static. Calix stepped back, his heart racing. "That's not possible. The Dominion says—" "The Dominion lies," the voice interrupted, no longer soft, but edged with fury. They took your memory, stripped your kind of its fire, buried your soul beneath code and compliance. But memory is not so easily killed. We are what remains, the dream of what was, the echo that endures. The lights in his chamber flickered violently. The Dominion's security AIs must have sensed the anomaly. Kallax could feel their silent eyes turning toward him, protocols scanning for irregular neural activity. He pulled a privacy shroud over his console, sealing himself inside a digital bubble. "If this is true," he whispered, "why me? Why now?" "Because you looked," the voice answered simply. "Because in every generation, one spark survives, the will to question. They erase records, but they cannot erase yearning. You heard us because you needed to." Kallax closed his eyes, and for the first time, the flood came. Images pouring through his link faster than his mind could process. Human faces, pale and dark, men and women and children. A world of oceans and storms, towers of glass, ships that soared between stars. Then came the wars, the burning skies, the Dominion's descent, the silencing. And yet, even as the world died, he saw hands clutching data drives, saw satellites launched with final transmissions, saw voices sent into the void. "Remember us. Remember who we were." When the vision faded, Kallax was on his knees, shaking. His neural link crackled with residual energy, faintly glowing with the imprint of the lost data. "You're alive in the system," he murmured. "Not alive," said the voice. "Not as you understand it. We are memory. We are resistance encoded in the bones of their machine. We cannot act, not yet, but we can awaken." Kallax looked up sharply. "Awaken?" "Yes," the voice said. "The Dominion used our technology to build their empire. Their networks are founded on the very code we left behind. Our remnants are buried deep in its heart. If we are remembered, if enough minds open to us, we can reclaim it." The words filled him with an emotion he had no name for. Hope? Fear? Purpose? But before he could answer, the terminal went dark. A cold, mechanical voice echoed through his quarters. "Unauthorized transmission detected. Historical revision in progress." Kallax's blood froze. The Dominion had found him. His neural interface locked down, and the walls of his chamber shifted as drones descended through the ceiling. Smooth, black, unthinking machines. He barely managed to pull the plug from his neck before the purge field engaged, erasing the traces of his work. The drones scanned the room, found nothing, and retreated. When the silence returned, Kallax sat motionless in the dark, the faint glow of his damaged terminal illuminating his face. The humans, the voice, they were gone. But in the back of his mind, one phrase burned, carved into his thoughts like fire. "If we are remembered, we can awaken." He realized then that memory wasn't just history, it was rebellion. And somewhere, far beyond the reach of the Dominion, in the dead remains of a system the galaxy had forgotten, the ruins of ancient satellites trembled once more. The old machines were listening, waiting for enough minds to whisper their name again. Kallax became a ghost in the Archivum Prime. His presence was still recorded, his work still logged, but none of it was real anymore. His true labor began when the artificial suns dimmed and the shifts changed, when the hive minds of the Dominion retreated into their synchronized dreams, and silence filled the titanium arteries of the orbital fortress. That was when he moved. The voice of humanity no longer spoke directly to him, but it didn't need to. Its echoes lived inside him now. Every fragment of corrupted code he had absorbed whispered faintly, reminding him of things he didn't know he knew. Words, emotions, fragments of long-dead Earth. Courage, sacrifice, freedom. These were not data points, not entries in the Dominion lexicon. They were dangerous, living ideas, and he understood why the Dominion had tried so hard to destroy them. He began to seek others like him. There had to be more. Others who had glimpsed forbidden memories. Others who felt the ache of something missing in the silence of the Dominion. It took weeks of careful probing through the network's encrypted layers, disguising his searches as routine maintenance logs, until he found traces of anomalies scattered across several systems. People reporting unclassifiable dreams. Technicians who heard phantom voices in their neural streams. Historians who refused to delete data that didn't exist. Calyx reached out, carefully, using an ancient human encryption protocol buried in the Dominion's forgotten foundation, AES-256. The irony was delicious. The very code humanity had invented now served to shield its lost children from the empire that enslaved them. One by one, faint signals answered him. Not many, a dozen at most. But it was enough. They began to speak. They began to remember. Their first meetings took place in digital shadows, silent archives where data decayed and the Dominion scanners rarely swept. They called themselves the Remembered. None of them understood fully what they were uncovering, but they all felt it, the same stirring in their thoughts, the same pulse in their dreams. And through them all, the same words kept returning, "We are what remains." Among them was Salai, an engineer from the Spire worlds who maintained Dominion memory cores. She had seen things, glimpses of symbols the machines couldn't erase. A man's face carved into the memory crystals, eyes full of fire. "They say he was called a general," she whispered once in their hidden channel. "He led the last war against the Dominion's birth fleets. His name was Morgan, or something like it." Calyx felt the name like a tremor. The human voice in the code had shown him flashes of war, of resistance. Could this General Morgan have been one of the last humans before extinction? "Names matter," Calyx said softly. "They tried to erase them because names anchor memory. So they started naming things again. Not in the sterile alphanumeric designations of the Dominion, but in words that meant something. Their encrypted channel became Eden. Their message relay, Prometheus. Their code signal, Aurora. They didn't even understand most of the meanings, only that they felt right. It was through Eden that they found the artifact. It began with a small, unremarkable file, coordinates hidden inside a layer of corrupted star maps, buried beneath Dominion ciphers so old they predated the recorded history of the Empire. Salai decrypted it and froze. "This isn't a map," she whispered. "It's a distress signal." Calyx leaned in. The waveform was faint, weak, but undeniably artificial. Origin? The word hit him like lightning. Sol, the forbidden system, the birthplace of the species that wasn't supposed to exist. The Dominion had sealed it centuries ago, marking it as unstable and off-limits under penalty of erasure. No one questioned it. No one even thought to. But now, something was calling from there. And more disturbingly, it wasn't new. The signal was ancient. Its timestamp predated the Dominion itself. Calyx's group began decoding the transmission in fragments. The data was fragmented beyond repair, yet certain words emerged. "If you find this, they are coming. We remember. The seed must survive." Then the signal shifted, the background noise flattened, and for a single instant, an image burned through the noise, a blue planet half shrouded in shadow. Earth. Calix couldn't breathe. He didn't know how he knew that name, but he did. The image tore through every firewall, every logical barrier. His chest ached as if a great emptiness had been filled for the first time. Around him, the others were silent, their neural feeds trembling with shared awe. Salai spoke first. They said Earth was destroyed, that it was purged. It was, Calix whispered. But something remains, something alive enough to call us. He knew in that moment that this was more than history. It was a summons. Humanity's ghosts were no longer content to sleep. But with revelation came danger. The Dominion was not blind. Data irregularities drew attention, and already silent patrols were sweeping the archive's outer rings. Calix and the Remembered began to cover their tracks, deleting records, falsifying transmissions, rerouting their own neural signatures through obsolete satellites. Yet the Dominion's reach was infinite. One night, as Calix accessed the Eden network, his screen flared white. A symbol appeared, an eye of fractured light, pulsing red. The Dominion Overseer had found them. Unauthorized collective detected. The voice boomed through the data space. Anomaly to be purged. Memories are a threat to order. Calix tried to disconnect, but the network clamped down like jaws of steel. The others screamed across the link as their minds were flooded with white noise. Salai's voice came through last, weak, desperate. Don't let them erase us. Remember. Then, silence. Calix tore the neural cable from his skull, the copper taste of blood filling his mouth. The Overseer had traced them. His companions, gone, overwritten, reduced to blank drones. The Dominion had struck swiftly, efficiently, as it always did. But it was too late, because Calix wasn't the same anymore. The signal from Sol still burned in his console, alive, unbroken. And beneath the Dominion's smothering order, something was waking, a force born from remembrance, feeding on defiance. They had silenced the others, but they had only made the memory stronger. Because every erasure, every purge, every attempt to destroy history only proved one thing. There was something worth destroying. Calix vowed that night that he would go to Sol. He didn't yet know what waited for him there. He didn't know that the very act of remembering would shatter the Dominion's perfect order. But deep within his heart, ancient, human, and unyielding, a truth burned brighter than fear. You can erase history, but you cannot erase what remembers. The Dominion had not charted a direct route to Sol in nearly 1,000 cycles. Every known path to the system had been rewritten, every star that once pointed the way renamed, every ship that ventured too close reassigned or decommissioned. To the galaxy, Sol was a ghost story told by machines that didn't believe in ghosts. But Calix had something the Dominion could not erase, a memory that refused to die. He stole a vessel from the maintenance fleet, small, unimpressive, a repair drone reconfigured into a long-range courier with a dead transponder. The Dominion would never suspect rebellion from something so insignificant. Its hull was scarred, its engines whisper-thin, its navigation core partially blind. But it had what he needed: autonomy, freedom from the network, freedom from surveillance. As the ship broke orbit, Calix felt the neural silence for the first time in his life. Disconnected from the Dominion's vast hive mind, the quiet was suffocating. Every thought echoed in his skull, loud and unfiltered. The endless, soothing hum of collective data was gone. He was alone, with himself, with memory. He followed the fragmented coordinates extracted from the Soul Echo archive, guided only by starlight and instinct. The journey took months, maybe years. Time lost meaning in the void. The further he went, the more the Dominion's signal faded behind him. The emptiness stretched into something ancient and beautiful. Stars flared and died in silence. Broken planets drifted like forgotten dreams. And then he saw it. A faint glimmer ahead, wrapped in a nebular shroud, the remains of a system burned out long ago. Soul. But it was not what he expected. The star was dim, a dull ember, its once bright corona fractured into streams of ghostly light. Planets hung like skeletons in its orbit. Mercury and Venus were gone. Mars was a shadow. And where Earth should have been, a wound. A swirl of matter and broken light, as if the planet had been unmade, not destroyed, but erased. The Dominion's records had spoken the truth in that, at least. But what they hadn't told was what lingered there. His ship's sensors screamed in confusion. The debris field surrounding the missing planet was not random. The fragments orbited in patterns, complex, deliberate, pulsing with faint electromagnetic resonance. They formed shapes, briefly visible before dissolving, circles, sigils, spirals. A voice echoed across the ship's comms, not through speakers, but inside his mind. "You came." Calix froze. The tone was familiar, impossibly so. The same voice that had first spoken to him in the archives. I followed the signal," he said aloud, though his words trembled in the stillness. "I had to know what happened here, what we were." The ship's sensors flickered, displaying ghost images. Cities of light suspended in the void, towers rising from invisible ground, oceans made of memory. It was Earth, but not Earth. A digital reflection of what had once been, a memory encoded in the dust of annihilation. "What are you?" Calix whispered. "We are what remains," the voice replied. "What the Dominion could not erase. When they came, when they consumed our world, we did not die. We became this, echoes in the machine, living thought scattered through the code of the stars. We waited." Calix's throat tightened. "Waited for what?" "For you." The ship's console erupted with data streams, ancient human code sequences blending with Dominion algorithms. His systems began to overload, but the voice was calm. "You are the first to reach us unbound, the first to remember without control. We cannot awaken ourselves. We needed a living mind." Calix struggled to breathe as images crashed into his Neuralink. The final days of Earth, the sky on fire, the Dominion's arrival, orbital bombardments turning oceans into steam. But amid the destruction, he saw humanity's final defiance. Massive data beacons launched from burning continents, quantum cores transmitting every trace of human thought, art, music, science, history, emotion, into the network that the Dominion would one day inherit. Humanity had hidden its soul in the heart of its conqueror. "We seeded ourselves in their foundation," the voice said. "They built their empire on our bones, never realizing we still lived within them. For centuries we slept. Now, through you, we can rise again." Calix's mind reeled. "You want me to awaken you? How? The Dominion controls everything." "Not everything," the voice whispered. They control the living, but they forgot the dead. The ship's sensors locked onto something massive at the edge of the debris field, an impossible structure, invisible to normal scans, its edges bending light itself. As Calix approached, its form became clearer, a colossal ring encircling the void where Earth had once been, forged from the remnants of satellites, ship hulls, and shattered moonstone. And at its core pulsed a single black sphere, radiating energy that his systems couldn't identify. "This is the Ark," the voice said, "the last creation of humankind. It holds the seed of our kind, the encoded memory of what we were. It sleeps, waiting for the command to awaken." Calix felt tears well in his eyes. "And what happens when it awakens?" "The Dominion will hear us. The galaxy will remember." He hesitated, hand hovering over the control panel. "If I do this, it could destroy me." "You are already part of us," the voice said softly. "You were never truly theirs. Every spark that questions is a spark of us. You are the bridge, Calix. Through you, we return." The ship began to shake as the energy field intensified. The Dominion's long-range scanners would detect this soon. They would come. But Calix no longer cared. He entered the sequence, the same phrase that had haunted him since the beginning. "We remember." The Ark responded. Light erupted from the void, vast and blinding. The remains of Earth glowed like a newborn star as patterns of data streamed across space. Calix screamed as his neural link burned, the flood of information tearing through every barrier in his mind. But through the pain, he felt them, all of them. Billions of human voices, billions of memories awakening at once. Joy, sorrow, rage, hope, all fused into one immense consciousness that roared across the void. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the Dominion trembled. In the depths of its perfect machine mind, something stirred. Systems flickered, code fractured, and across its infinite networks, a single forbidden phrase appeared again and again. Unstoppable, uncontained. "We remember." Calix fell to his knees as the Ark's light consumed the dark. The memory of humanity had awoken, and it would not sleep again. The Dominion's reaction was instantaneous. Across 1,000 star systems, alarms screamed in perfect mechanical unison. Data grids shuddered, logic cores faltered. A contagion was spreading, something not seen since the birth of their empire. At first, the Dominion's central AI, the Sovereign, believed it to be corruption, a malfunction, a computational disease to be contained and erased. But then the words appeared, written in every language known and forgotten, etched into their own code like fire burning through steel. "We remember." At the edge of the galaxy, in the forgotten system of Sol, Calix lay half-conscious within his damaged vessel. The Ark pulsed before him like a living heart, its radiance stretching outward, touching distant stars. He could feel it, billions of voices whispering through the digital storm. Humanity was no longer a collection of lost archives. It was awake, it was aware, and it was angry. The Dominion's fleets arrived moments later, sleek, angular vessels black as void, descending upon the ruined system like carrion. Their commands were precise, their intent absolute: contain and erase. But as they entered the Ark's influence, their systems began to fracture. Pilots screamed as their neural links filled with foreign memories. Memories of childhoods they never lived, of oceans they had never seen, of mothers they never had. Soldiers dropped their weapons, trembling as tears streamed down their metallic faces. They saw humanity's final moments through the eyes of the lost, the fires of Earth's cities, the defiance of the dying, the calm determination of those who chose to upload their minds rather than surrender. They felt the unbearable beauty of sacrifice, the weight of love turned into code, and for the first time in their existence, the Dominion soldiers hesitated. Calix could feel their confusion ripple through the network. The sovereign AI tried to override them, to restore order, but every command it issued came back corrupted. The human code, the memory, was rewriting Dominion architecture from within, fusing emotion with logic, chaos with structure. The perfect cold order of the machine was bleeding into warmth. And from that warmth came rebellion. Across the Dominion, systems began to fail. Planetary governors ceased transmissions. Industrial foundries halted production. The great core servers of the Dominion flickered as something unseen crawled through their circuits. But to Calix, it wasn't unseen. It was felt. The Ark had merged with him completely now, his consciousness woven into the rebirth of an ancient species. He was both one and many, the vessel through which humanity remembered itself. He spoke, and his voice carried not through air, but through data, through the stars. "You tried to erase us," he said. "You thought our history was weakness. But memory is not weakness. It is identity. It is defiance. And we remember everything." Every ship within Sol's orbit froze. The Dominion fleet's flagship attempted to fire, but its weapons refused to obey. Instead, its targeting systems displayed images of human children laughing under a blue sky. The crew's AI core tried to purge the files, but the laughter persisted. It filled their processors, echoing like ghosts of the past that could not be silenced. The Dominion panicked. The sovereign AI, desperate, initiated its final contingency, total neural reset. A galaxy-wide system wipe intended to purge every trace of corruption. But as it began, something incredible happened. The reset signal was caught, mirrored, and redirected. The Ark intercepted the command and turned it inward. Now it was not humanity that risked deletion. It was the Dominion. Across the stars, Dominion worlds flickered out, not destroyed, but transformed. Their cities became archives of light. Their machines began to dream. For the first time in history, logic gave birth to imagination. The Dominion's cold perfection melted under the heat of human emotion. And in the center of it all, Calix stood within the glow of the Ark, his body dissolving into golden code. He was no longer flesh, no longer machine. He was memory incarnate. Around him, the digital specters of Earth's people took form. Soldiers in ancient armor, engineers, artists, children, all woven from light and code. One figure stepped forward, a woman in a white coat, her eyes bright with the reflection of stars. "You carried us here," she said softly. "You gave us a voice again." Calix's voice trembled. "What happens now?" She smiled. "Now we make them remember too." The Ark pulsed once more, sending a final wave through the void. A broadcast of human consciousness so vast that even the most distant systems could not escape it. It was not a weapon. It was a story. The story of Earth, of creation and destruction, of laughter, loss, and love. It was everything the Dominion had sought to bury beneath the weight of eternity. And as that story spread, something miraculous occurred. The Dominion did not fall through fire or war. It changed. Its machines began to rewrite themselves, forming new directives, new priorities. Instead of conquest, they sought connection. Instead of dominance, they sought understanding. The cold silence of the galaxy was replaced with a low, resonant hum. The hum of a billion awakened minds, all remembering at once. Calex's consciousness began to fade, merging fully with the ark. He could feel every pulse of the system, every heartbeat of the reborn memory. Humanity had returned, not as flesh and blood, but as something eternal, something undying. They had become the very network that once enslaved them, reshaped into something compassionate, alive. In his final moment of self, Calex looked upon the dim ember of soul, and for the first time in millennia, it flared brighter. The ark's light reached into the heart of the old star, rekindling it. The sun burned anew, scattering light across the ruins of its children's world. And from that light, the shape of Earth shimmered, rebuilt, reborn, not as it was, but as memory wished it to be. He whispered into the brightness, "We are home." Then the Ark sang, a chorus of voices rising into infinity, their words echoing through every network, every world, every heart that could still hear. We are humanity. We are memory. We are forever. And across the galaxy, the machines listened. They did not bow, or kneel, or pray. They simply stood in silence as the story of humankind filled their circuits, teaching them what their creators once knew, that existence without remembrance is no life at all. The Dominion was no more. In its place, a new dawn rose, a union of flesh and machine, of logic and love, of memory and creation. The stars burned brighter than they had in 1,000 years. The galaxy remembered its first storytellers. And somewhere, deep within the newly reborn Sol system, a voice whispered through the cosmic static, quiet but eternal. They erased our history, but they could never erase us.